This is a rolling stone. What if Shakespeare had a sister? A genius just as brilliant? What if the theory of relativity was discovered in a kitchen, between cooking and childcare? What if the code that runs our world was written by a woman history chose to forget? This isn't a fantasy, it's a tragedy. History is a grand gallery of genius. Einstein, Da Vinci, Shakespeare, Ramanujan. Their portraits hang in places of honor. But look closer. Do you see the empty frames? The vast, silent spaces on the walls? Where is the other half of humanity? Where are the portraits of our brilliant women? In the long night of history, a few flames flickered against the darkness. Hatshepsut, the pharaoh who ruled Egypt 1400 years before Christ. Gargi, who challenged the great sage Yajnavalkya in a battle of intellect. Hypatia, the mind of Alexandria, a master of mathematics and philosophy. Cleopatra, Maitreyi, and Hiduana. These were not mere names. They were embers of a wildfire that was never allowed to burn, because the centuries that followed forged chains for them, not crowns. A verdict was passed. The philosopher Rousseau declared, "Women have no artistic taste, no genius." The philosopher Schopenhauer announced, "Women have no sense of music or poetry." They weren't just stating opinions, they were writing the laws of society, and the first rule in their book was simple: she shall not learn. Universities across the world barred their gates. It wasn't until 1678 that a woman, Elena Piscopia of Italy, officially earned a university degree. In India, Mary Panos, our first female graduate, had to travel to Madras because she was denied the chance to study science in her home state. It was against this that Virginia Woolf aimed her literary canon, a room of one's own. She imagined a sister for Shakespeare, equally gifted, named Judith. And what was her fate? A world that would break her spirit and drive her to ruin. Woolf wasn't just asking for a room. She was demanding a world where a woman's mind had a right to exist. But sometimes she fought, and she learned. She made a discovery. And the world promptly gave the credit to a man. History has a name for this injustice: the Matilda Effect. Its most tragic victim is perhaps Rosalind Franklin, the genius who captured Photo 51, the key that unlocked the structure of DNA. Yet the Nobel Prize was awarded to 3 men. Her name was a footnote. Marie Curie, a double Nobel laureate, was still denied membership in the French Academy of Sciences. Lise Meitner, the physicist who was the intellectual core behind the discovery of nuclear fission, was overlooked for the Nobel. Their brilliance was stolen, their names erased. So to be heard, they had to wear a man's face. Mary Ann Evans became the celebrated novelist George Eliot. The Bronte sisters became the Bell brothers, Currer, Ellis, and Acton. Jane Austen's masterpiece was published simply by a lady, and this isn't ancient history. The agent for J.K. Rowling advised her to use initials, fearing boys wouldn't read a book by a Joanne. An experiment by author Catherine Nichols proved it. Her manuscript, under the male name George, received 17 times more interest than it did under her own. A world where even ink is devalued if the hand that holds the pen is a woman's. But what if she overcomes all this? Then she faces the greatest battlefield of all, the home. Consider 2 Nobel laureates, Toni Morrison and Ernest Hemingway. Hemingway wrote in his private villa, with his days free for fishing and leisure. Toni Morrison, a single mother, woke at 4 a.m. to write before getting her sons ready for school, working a full day as an editor and returning to write again late at night. We hear the ghost of Leo Tolstoy's wife, Sophia, who cried, "I had to kill my own genius to serve his." We hear the words of composer Fanny Mendelssohn's father, who told her, "For your brother, music will become a profession. For you, it can and must only be an ornament." Was India's story any different? No. Here the war was fought on 2 fronts, against patriarchy and colonialism, and yet, phoenixes rose from the ashes. Savitribai Phule, Pandita Ramabai, Dakshayani Velayudan, D.K. Patamal, who shattered the chains of Brahmanical orthodoxy with her music. M.S. Subbulakshmi, who broke from the confines of the Devadasi system to become a global voice of divinity. These women were not just geniuses, they were revolutionaries. So why are there so few female geniuses on the wall? Scientists once argued their brains were smaller. Even Stephen Hawking suggested a biological disadvantage in spatial reasoning. Einstein himself wrote that the constitution of nature places limits on women. But they were all wrong. The limitation was not in their nature, but in the nature of the walls built around them. The real question is, who will answer for the millions of brilliant minds crushed between those walls? Today, the empty frames are slowly beginning to fill. But every portrait is painted with the colors of a fight. For the opportunities a man takes for granted, a woman must still wage an extraordinary war. The greatest chapter in human history may be the one that was never written, the chapter they weren't allowed to write. And it is the duty of our generation to finally prepare the ink, the paper, and the silence to listen to their story.